All right, so are you ready? Alrighty, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2.
Hello. Oh, where do I look? This way?
You're killing it already, right there. You're there.
Well, hello, Facebook. Hello, Instagram. We love our meta mega stars. My name is Sarah, he, him, coming to you live from the Utah Pride Center. Pew, pew, pew. And I don't know if you can see, but I have a whole bunch of friends here in the room joining us tonight. We are celebrating AAPI month. Someone earlier said, what's AAPI? They were white. AAPI is Asian American Pacific and Islander month. And to help us celebrate, we have invited two sisters to come and take part in our Fireside Chat series, which we have been doing now for quite some time, once a month. We want to thank you for coming back, and I want to introduce you to this amazing pair of sisters, Milan Sagato and Verona Mauga. Insert clap. Thank you. Okay. Who wants to start first? We want to get to know you a little bit.
I think Verona should start first.
Okay, Verona start.
Sure,
first.
I'll go first. My name's Verona Mauga. I am she, her. First of all, I just want to say thank you for having us and creating such a lovely space for all communities, but specifically for our most vulnerable communities, for the LGBTQIA community, and for also making access to celebrate Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I'm an ally, and I am a friend and a supporter of this community. It means a lot to me. A little bit about myself. I am a Utah House representative. I recently got elected and just completed my first term. I don't always bring this up, but I'll bring it up today because I think it's important to celebrate who we are and where we come from. Because celebration isn't just about us. It's about those who are watching and those who feel unheard and unseen. I am the first Samoan woman elected to any legislature in the continental US. And thank you. And again, I think it's so important that we share these things. We share our victories and we celebrate together. Because our communities need to know that we belong in every space. I'll have to share one more about me. I'm a wife and a mother. My son just graduated from SUU a couple weeks ago. I'm really excited about that. And yeah, just so happy to be here. Thank you. I'm honored.
Like the college?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to have to talk about skincare later.
Okay. Korean skincare is where
she's killing it. Okay. Thank you, Verona. And Milan. Come on in.
Hi, so I am Milan Sagato. I'm Verona's sister, youngest sister, she, her. I am an intelligence officer in the Air Force. I've been in intelligence work for a long time, so we do secret squirrel stuff. So this is not my normal setting. We're very big on being private and not really talking about what we do or anything at all. So, but when Verona approached me about doing this panel with her, I was very for it. I think a huge thing for us as a member of the LGBTQIA community is to be able to be open and speak about your experiences and to connect, especially in such a small niche community as we are, and especially to do it with my sister because she has been one of my biggest supporters my whole life, and I'm really excited to be here with you guys.
Thank you. Us too. We're so stoked that you're here. I first, I want to say met. I didn't even get to meet Verona that day, but we first met at an Equality Utah event where Verona spoke, and I was so moved by all that you shared. Like being on a panel with different people, I was impressed with how vulnerable you were able to be under that structure, and how honest. And so I was like, oh, we have to get to know Verona more and get her into the center. So, And she told us that she had a sister who was part of our community, and she didn't know if you would be up for coming and doing this. She was like, I gotta ask. So we're so glad that you accepted and wanted to come talk to us.
Yeah, thanks so much for having us.
I was very surprised. Like when Sarah reached out, I was like, sounds like a really great opportunity. My sister is so private. She's probably going to say no. But I sent her a text and immediately she said yes. So thank you for being here.
Yay, gay. Okay. Okay, so I would love to hear more about you two, like what it was like growing up as like Tawan sisters here in Utah. I didn't grow up here, so I don't know what the experience was like, and where you're from. Like, tell me about some of that, if you don't mind.
Yeah. You know, my parents immigrated from Samoa in the late 70s, but we grew up in a family where with very proud parents. And I say this all the time, like my parents were so proud of our culture and where we came from, and the values that they shared with us meant a lot. I actually got to this point in my life where I was like, wait, what am I so proud of, you know? And it's that place in life where you have to decide and discover who you are, what your purpose is, and what your values truly mean to you now as an adult and as an individual. But that's our hardworking parents, working 2 to 3 jobs at a time sometimes. I share this story all the time too, because when you are in politics, you just tell stories about yourself nonstop. But I'll just share it real quickly. As a way to make ends meet, my parents would make baked goods, Samoan like pies and pangipopo and kekepoa out of our home, and then drop us kids off, and even my cousin who's here with us at Kearns Park. We were like in elementary. I was in 6th grade, and but this is how we supported our family, and this is where we learned community and the value of a dollar and to be a part of something greater than ourselves. And so I think having that background makes it so that we can be vulnerable and we can serve without any other intention besides caring and loving for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just to add on to what she's saying, I think a huge part of growing up that way is that we had to rely on our community. We had to rely on hard work to push through, and those are such important things that our parents taught us, especially the community part. You know, my parents started out in Hawaii, moved out to Long Beach, California, and my you know, when you're younger, your parents don't really talk about the struggle that they went through.
Mm-hmm.
But it was probably maybe 8 or 9 years ago. I was on a plane with my dad to California, to a funeral for a close family member of ours, and he told us, like, when they moved to the mainland, they were supposed to go back to Samoa, but he made the hard decision to actually move us all out there. Didn't have any money. Um, Ended up squeezing everybody, so 6-person family at the time, into a 1-bedroom apartment with his family, so or with his cousin, and so there was probably 12 people in that 1-bedroom apartment.
Oh my gosh.
And just you know, those little things, understanding like the work that they put into making sure that we had a better life, and to find their way here to Utah is something that I always carry with me, in everything I do. And you know, that community part, just like my cousin being here, my wife's in the audience. It's even though she is very tired from a long day at work, she's still here with me. It's such a big part of who we are.
I love that. Yeah, and I love your family so far. So when your parents came here to Utah, there was a family of 6 of you at the time. Is that right?
7 at that point, because I was finally born.
Oh, yay!
Yeah, I'm the youngest.
Oh, fun. Okay. And when about was that? That was the 80s?
Early 90s.
Early 90s?
Yeah, I was in 6th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And why Utah for your parents?
So we grew up in a very Mormon household, and Utah is, the center of Mormon family, Mormon culture, and we also had family members who lived here, and so I think it just felt very natural for my family to eventually make our way here.
Okay. So you can do you remember the move?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Were you happy about it or?
I was excited because we got to be close to our favorite cousins.
Yay.
But every move is hard. We had friends and we lived in a neighborhood that we had been in for a long time. It was really interesting as I remember leaving our ward. It was the last Sunday before we moved to Utah, and one of the ward members pulled my parents aside, and I was listening, and she said, "I just need you to know that Utah Mormons are different than Mormons outside of Utah." And and it was a warning, and I always remember that because when I would kind of look out for it, and it wasn't hard to find. It was very present, but yeah, it was something that we had to navigate, and that was one of the first things I remember trying to navigate. Oh, now we are part of a new ward family, but it feels different, and it also looks different. So yeah, I think it's always been about finding our place and making ourselves present in whatever space we're in. Even as young 11, and you're probably 7, 8,
8, 9.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I also grew up near Long Beach. We were in Compton. My aunt was in Long Beach, so we were in Long Beach all the time. But we left when I was 6, also. So and I barely remember anything, but I do remember being told as well, oh, you're leaving mini Samoa Mormon haven here in Compton, and you're going to Seattle. It's going to be different, and it was. When you moved here, were you immediately did you immediately get integrated into the Polynesian community here?
Kind of. And I don't know if you want to answer if I'm talking too much.
I like you talking more. No, for us, when we first moved here, I think one of the things is the community. You'll usually find it in the church setting, but we ended up going to a Palangi ward, so a white ward. So we had to kind of find our community in different ways. We were fortunate to live by family, so we had that right there, and I think that was more so the family that we already knew. What was our community when we moved out here? How do you see it?
Yeah, we grew up going to Palangi wards, but I think because we were so integrated in the community with selling baked goods, that was for me, where I felt community. My fondest memories was being a kid and selling half moon pies to people who looked like me, people who valued the food that we ate, and it wasn't weird. And so when I think about community as a child, I reflect on those days and feel really grateful that I had that.
Yeah, that's so neat to me. Let's see, how old were you, Milan, when you first told anyone in your family that you were part of our community?
I was probably 19. I knew when I was much younger, of course, but I think it was hard growing up in a Samoan family, and then on top of that, being part of the Mormon church. So it was, I felt like it was something I was always trying to change about myself when I was younger, unfortunately. But yeah, I was, I think 19. But once I did it, it was kind of like a huge burden lifted off my shoulders. So
yeah, I can relate. Do you know about how old you were when you started to realize maybe you were not straight?
Oh gosh, I was probably in 6th grade, so that was 11 or 12.
Yeah. Okay.
I realized I probably should have been liking all the boys already,
but you didn't.
No, I was, yeah, it was the other way around, of course.
Yeah, Me too. I probably shouldn't have been liking all the boys. Or I should have. Sure. Yeah, you get to change the way you write your story as you grow up. Verona, how was it? How did you go about telling Verona then?
You want me to share how I found out?
Please do.
I carried a lot of shame for this for a long time. You guys remember I grew up in a Mormon family, and I'm also a little bit nosy. Milan left her AOL email account out, and I read very detailed emails, like every single one of them, and I'm gonna cry. I remember just being having so much judgment, and feeling confused. I just cannot believe this, and I don't think we've ever talked about it since, but I always regret it, and I hate that this was my response. I told her about the email. Actually, I was in so much shock, learning this, and I think I made Milan go upstairs with me, and I made her pray. And when I think about doing this to someone, who I love very much, I feel just awful. And I remember asking her, how could you do this? Now our family won't be together forever. And I don't know, I said really crazy things like, you're not going to go to the celestial kingdom. We won't be together for eternity. But thankfully, we talked and had meaningful conversations and worked through it. So then it was up to me to start unpacking some of that, and recognizing where does this judgment come from, and religion and what we're taught growing up, sometimes can be the complete opposite of loving one another. A lot of times it feels like the complete opposite of loving one another. And I had to remember that and get back to that. And then all of a sudden I'm having all these questions of everything I've ever learned, and just trying to navigate this new space. And my goal ever since that day, when I was so nosy and read Milan's emails, was to be quiet and to learn, and ask questions when it made sense, but just learn how to truly be Christ-like and love someone, with no judgment and no fear, and to just love openly and honestly. And that's one of the greatest lessons for me that I've ever had to learn. And just that moment and my relationship with my sister, and wanting to support her and others in the community has really always gone back to loving each other, and figuring out what love is supposed to look like. And love is simple. Love is supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be difficult. And so out of this, that's how I found out. And but I've learned to stretch myself, and to just see past judgment and the things that were taught growing up.
And that was such a long time ago. When I think about it now, I kind of gloss over those hard times. But in reality, I also look at it as yeah, it was rough at first, but I am so grateful, because my sister and all of my family, they pushed themselves to figure out how to change their perception, and I am so grateful that we had actually gone through that as a family. I'll be honest. Once everything was out, I wasn't going to change who I was. This was me finally getting to be me. It was my freedom. but I love my family so much, and I always wanted them to be a part of my life still. And they all made that decision to still be a part of my close circle, which I'm so grateful for. But with Verona, I once she did get to a certain point, and it wasn't very long at all. She was one of my biggest offenders. I would randomly we'd actually be out at a nightclub sometimes.
We love Manhattan.
We love Manhattan. If you guys are old enough to remember it here, but yeah, I would always remember. I'd randomly hear her talking to a group and just telling them how much she loved me and how much she supported me, which I was like, we're in the middle of the bar.
I know. I was making
I'm
a
sure we didn't ask
for that moment for asking her. She's saying that we're not going to the celestial kingdom anymore.
Still, I loved it. I appreciate her. So.
Oh my gosh. And you're the youngest
Yeah.
in your family. Are you the oldest?
I'm the middle child.
You're
There's
the middle.
5 of us. Yeah, the oldest actually just walked in. She's back there.
Oh. Okay. I can only imagine. Was there anyone else in your family who is also LGBTQ that like your family was around or that you knew of?
Not that we were really around.
I think so. Yeah, I think Milan was the first one to come out.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so it was very new. I mean, we have cousins now and other family members, but yeah.
Oh my gosh. What was that like when your sister approached you and said she found the letters? Um, were you ready to start talking about it?
No, I wasn't. But honestly, it made it easier for me. Um, it made it easier for me to face it myself, and start working through that as a family. So although it didn't go the way that I had planned, and there's never a perfect time. So once it happened, and I'm
Yeah.
grateful that it was sooner than later.
That is really beautiful. But did you even have language yet when you and Verona started talking about it?
Sorry, when you say language.
Like, did you even assign like labels to like, the way you felt or identified or anything like that?
Not really. I just knew that I wasn't attracted to men, and I had actually I met somebody at my part-time job, and it was the first time that I felt like I was falling in love. It wasn't at all, but
We've been there, yeah.
but it was the emotion that I felt was missing most of the time when I was trying to date as a young adult. So
that's so funny. Well, I asked because you were the youngest, the first to come out in your family, and so like I was also the first in my family, besides one estranged uncle that we had that we were not really allowed to spend much time with. And he was a flight attendant, so we never saw him anyway. But I remember how difficult it was for me even to find language for any of the feelings. Even once I like started going on dates with guys, I still didn't even know what to like call that, how to address it. So, but but yeah, it sounds like you got to a good place fairly quickly. It sounds like, or was it not quick back then?
it feels quick now, but yeah, it really did take some time still. Yeah, as a family, I think with my sisters, we mended that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And kind of
it actually became really fun to go to a bar with her and tell all the boys that she doesn't like boys. Milan's gorgeous, and we used to go out and hang out, and so many guys would be all over her. And like once I knew, and I loved being able to tell people that.
That's so funny.
Like, leave her alone. She doesn't like you. She doesn't like your kind.
That's so funny. And your parents, they've come around too?
Yeah, and that was a relationship that took longer. But once once they came to terms with it on their own, they have been the biggest support. Sometimes I feel like they love my wife more than me, but they're very supportive. They're very supportive parents, and I appreciate that from them.
And are they still active members of their church?
Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And are most of you?
Yes, most of our family is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great. And how you started touching on it, Verona, but how do you get to a place where you're able to reconcile your faith, your love for your sister and her community, um, and say like this fits and should fit together?
Um, and this is just my personal experience. I think for me, there's a lot of what we were taught growing up as members of the LDS Church, um, that I've had to say, like, okay, that actually doesn't make any sense. Um, we talk a lot about loving one another and Christ-like love and service and all of these things, right? But I don't think there's supposed to be any stipulations on love and caring for people. And so, for me, as the way for me to, as I navigated this, was just recognizing that there was a lot of unlearning I had to do, and to really trust myself and what felt right and what felt good. You know, in our culture, it's mana. We feel the spirit, and if I don't feel the spirit, that mana, then I just don't trust it. And I've learned to trust myself and my intuition and that mana that is innately within us, right? And so that's how I've been able to navigate things and just have an open mind. And we work a lot in the community too. And so a lot of the work we do is with marginalized and vulnerable communities. And just having that background and that perspective of someone who serves communities that are silenced, it gives you a new perspective, and it broadens the way that you love, and it makes love more clear and just easy. And so for me, like, that experience serving in community has really helped me to understand that, oh, I think some of the things I was taught growing up or some of the things I heard was not necessarily right. And again, I'll just go back to trusting that intuition.
I love that. Of mana. I haven't thought about it in a while. How did you meet your wife, Milan?
So we knew of each other growing up. She was actually an amazing basketball player in high school, and I was very average. So I just, yeah. But our close cousin, so my close cousin is here, and her close cousin, she put a number one up because she is my number one cousin. She's my best cousin. But like our closest cousins, respectively, were best friends. So there was always a connection. But when I had joined the Air Force, my wife was already in at the time, and that was really when we got to know each other and connected. But yeah, I met her and I was like, okay, I better not screw this up. I'm gonna keep her around for life. And yeah, she's still here. It's been 13 years now. So.
Oh my gosh, 13 years. I can barely count to 13. Jeez. Oh, that's so beautiful to me. Okay, what was scarier to you? Sharing who you are with your Polynesian community or with your LDS community?
I would say my Polynesian community. No disrespect to my LDS community, but I valued my connections with my Polynesian community a lot more. And you know, the one thing with Pacific Islanders is that there is that aspect of it where you are trying to save face for your family. And so, for some reason, and that was something I had to unlearn for myself personally, is that I shouldn't let myself suffer internally, just for the sake of making sure I'm not embarrassing someone. So it was something that I had to overcome eventually, but it was a difficult part of that too.
Ugh, yeah, I can relate. Well, we have a lot of, here at the center, we have a lot of kids that come through in and out. Jay knows. Uh, Jay is our youth coordinator. What's your title?
Yeah, youth programs manager.
Yeah, youth programs hottie. Um, but we are getting more and more young people who do intersect with like AAPI or other marginalized identities. What what kind of advice would you give them about like maybe pride or who they are or how to get to a place like that?
I would just say, realize that you are enough, and that you are the most important part of this equation. I know for us in the AAPI community, there's always this stigma about shaming your family name, but understand that if your family loves you enough, they will love you for who you are no matter what. And if it doesn't come to that, it's okay to let them go, which I think is hard with Pacific Islanders too, because that's generally the circle, that's your community that basically uplift you. But there is community everywhere, and you will find a place where you are loved, regardless if it's with this family, with this religion, um, or here with the amazing things that you guys do here at the Utah Pride Center to create that community for us too.
Hmm, thank you. Um, I kind of want to ask you the same question, Verona, about, but from the ally point of view. Um, there, we have such a big community of allies and potential allies here in Utah. What advice would you give them concerning how to get to the place that you got to?
Um, and just speaking as an ally, I think one of and someone who has allies, like being a person of color, right? And I think one of the most important things to know is if you're going to be an ally, like you're an ally. You don't speak for, you don't represent, but you support and you uplift and you empower. And so like even with my sister and others in the community, it's always been like really seeking to understand and understand like where I can help uplift and bring value.
Thank you. Right now, I know that our country's kind of, I don't know what I'm allowed to say on this cast, but things are kind of wild right now. And you two are both in occupations that are very where people have a lot of opinions, I guess, of either who you should be or how you should believe. How do you navigate working in a place like that and maintaining all of these values?
I think for me, specifically speaking about the work that I'm doing in the legislature, um, there's a lot of people who I don't agree with a lot of things they do or say or bills that they run. And I think they might feel the same way about me, like they don't agree with some of the things that are important to me or bills that I'm running. But one thing that I do truly believe is regardless of our political affiliation, we can connect on some human level. And for me, going into the legislature, it was really important that before I made any judgments or allowed myself to be overly emotional because I'm upset about something someone said or a bill they're running, was to really seek to understand them and try and figure out like where we connect. And I was able to run some really good bills and also help have conversations about amendments and make bad bills less bad. I think for the most part, people want to do good things. We just have really different ideas. And it's very interesting because even though we share a lot of the same values, the way like we present and bring that out to the world looks so different. And you might just think like these people are really awful. But I know that once you get to know each other, we can find ways to work together and to even make very small change. And I mentioned making bad bills less bad. That's a lot of the work that we have to do at the legislature. And so it's quite interesting because we work a lot together. I don't want to say his name because I don't want to give him attention, but there is someone who made a flag bill, and as much as we don't agree on a lot of things, he helped me pass some really good bills that actually benefit our communities. And so that's where I'm saying is like, we have to figure out ways to connect on a human level because there's something that we can agree on. There's some way that we can help each other, even if we don't agree on flags.
That seems so hard.
It is very hard. It's quite difficult.
Do you have any comments on that from your perspective?
Do you mean with?
Like in your work, you're still active military, or?
So, yes.
I guess you don't have to if you can't talk about it.
No, so, you know, it is kind of hard to talk about my work, but even in a leadership perspective in the military, one thing that I have to do because, you know, we don't get to create larger policy in general. A lot of it is executing mission and making sure that you are putting people on the right path to do so. And you know, there are some things, maybe many things that I may not agree with, but there are people that I have to make sure that I'm taking care of to make sure that they don't end up in harm's way and that they are safe. And I think maybe that is an area where we do have similarities, where you also have to understand that we ultimately want a similar thing, a similar outcome, but it's finding that human part, that individual part, to make sure that things are running smoothly. Sorry, that's so vague, but
no, that's okay. I think that there are people that need to hear that too. So, we talked about the intersectionality of being AAPI and LGBTQIA+. Here in Utah, we have, I don't know if it's a unique issue, but it is more unique than in other places, where within the LGBTQ community, our communities like AAPI are so small, like such a small percentage. What can allies within the LGBTQ community, what can we do to further help our other inner marginalizations like AAPI people?
I think about organizations, other AAPI organizations who are already doing the work. A lot of times allies, I feel like, try to come in and say like, I love you guys and I love this group and I want to support you. This is what I think you should do and I want to give you money but I want you to do it like this. And we have a lot of really great organizations within the AA and HPI community who are doing work. And I think about Noah Noah Foundation and what they're doing and the safe spaces that they're creating for Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders. And I see a lot of young people who are working with them and who are their most authentic selves at a very young age. And we couldn't do that when we were their age, you know? And so I think it's really about supporting the Asian Americans and Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders who are doing the work, and not telling us how to do it. That happens so much.
100%. Yeah, and I really love seeing what the Nuanua Foundation has been doing. I always think to myself, like, I would have loved to have that sense of community when I was younger. But there wasn't really anyone that I knew in the like Pacific Islander community, that I could easily connect with. So yeah, I would just parrot what Verona said. Just do our best to support the initiatives that they have worked for themselves, and to bring more of the community in.
Okay, good. And those are questions that we get asked a lot. So thank you for your insight. I want to make, oh my gosh, I want to make sure we have time for people with questions to be able to ask them. So is it okay if we go to the audience?
Yeah.
Okay. If you would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and we'll bring the mic to you. Don't be shy. We'll just start with one. Okay.
This is so fancy and scary. As I was listening to you two tell your stories, I kept wondering, like, what resources were available to you as you're going through this. Like, if it wasn't friends or family, like, were there resources in the community that you were comfortable? Were they available? You know, because all I think about now is what resources are available, you know, for my community and the kids I love, and that I'm familiar with what they're going through and how I can help them navigate, so that um, we're reducing that stigma of like shame or feeling like they have to hide and they can't come out and talk to people. So I just wanted to know if there were resources available in your time, and if there weren't, can you tell us about the ones that you know now that maybe I could share?
You know, this is one of the very best resources that is out there, and that was out there when I was first navigating my path. Um, you know, I would like actively go out to like the gay and lesbian bars just to find that community. So like the Paper Moon, very old. I would be there. I would come out to the Pride Festival in the summertime, but like, you know, I had to like figure it out and find those places. But you know, now like everything's a lot more accessible, with technology and the internet. So um, I hope that the younger generation has that ability to find those answers more easily. But again, this place, the Utah Pride Center, is a fantastic resource. So.
And I would actually go along with Milan to the Pride festivals. And even when I was first getting involved in politics, I don't know if you guys still do this, but when Obama was running for president, I remember we went to the Pride Center to watch him speak at the DNC and get his official announcement. And but yeah, just being able to be in spaces that were safe, where you could be exactly who you are. And for me, I was tagging along because I was like, I'm going to be your biggest supporter. And and also like just getting involved in politics too. I wanted to go to a place to watch Obama, a candidate back then, speak, where I just felt like there were people who got me and who got us, and who cared about the same things that we did in a similar way. But as far as resources and connecting with community, there's so many organizations right now that are doing a lot of really good work. I can name like quite a few off the top of my head. Sitting right behind you is Benjamin Powell from Creative Pacific. We mentioned Noa Noa Foundation. There's the Utah Pacific Islander Civic Engagement Coalition. There's Nafanoa Foundation, Le Malu. There are so many people doing really great work. And I think when we're wanting to get new people involved or the younger generation involved, I always say to just start serving, because once you serve, you start to get a really good idea of what your purpose is and what direction you want to continue serving in. And for me, that's what I did. I've worked on so many boards, so many nonprofits, but just being able to do that and work with different communities, I was able to gain a perspective that helped shape me to be a leader and someone who truly enjoys serving and cares to do that.
To help make yourself a resource. And who's next? Who's got another question?
What resources there in the military were available? Were they impactful? Was there something that inspired? I don't know. Sorry.
For the community, there were actually groups that were very open and impactful. And I know with the Air National Guard base where we're at, we did actually have a group that would every June would put on a barbecue or some type of event just to celebrate who we are and that we are there, that we exist, that we do have a community within the military. Whether unfortunately those are not as prevalent at the moment, but just be aware of that we're there, and maybe we don't have the opportunity to support in an official military capacity, but there are people that you are able to connect with that are open about who we are and are very welcoming.
I remember, you watching this. I went to my private board meeting, in the military. And
Yeah.
I just wondered if it's changed drastically.
It's ever evolving. I know when I first joined, don't ask, don't tell was still a thing, where if it was made known to your leadership that you were LGBT, sorry, losing my letters, but if you were of the community, you could be kicked out. But that's gone with the Obama administration. They did actually remove that, and yeah, there's progress. We'd love to make it even quicker and make it more transparent, but there has been progress. So.
Next.
I don't have a question. I would say something. I commend both of you for speaking up and saying what you're saying tonight. So I remember growing up here, and there was not many that were very open. What would you say? Sounds like we have a lot of resources. What would you say would be something beneficial for those who are seeking long-term relationship? Because that's not always the situation. I will just say openly in our community. Some people pack up real quick in a truck and move on in or move on out. But I think what we need to look at is how do we change the perception of what people think the queer community is all about, or the gay community, or the alphabet community, right? When it comes to long-term relationships, because you guys have been together, 13 years? Would you say, would it be something that we should consider in our community, whether it's in our alphabet community, our Pacific Island community, to represent those areas, not just on the resource side of it, but also the relationship development in finding a long-term partner for time and all eternity, because I think it's one of those things. I'm joking, but it's true. You know, I've been with my partner for a very long time, but I think that's something that people struggle with, and I think they have a hard time. So, what would you suggest if you were to be in that position? You are in that position now to answer. Like, what would you suggest that we could do in our community to help strengthen that area when it comes to relationship building?
Oh, this is a tough one. Uh, no, but you are right that it's it, when I was navigating this when I was younger, I did realize that that was a challenge, and I am no expert and I could be totally off, but sometimes I saw that as a challenge with how we how it was so hard to normalize who we are, that challenge to go up against society. I think like the best way that I could see that maybe we can change this perception is to make sure that we are open about who we are, and hopefully we can change the hearts and minds of those who wish to keep us in a closet, because I feel like that's a lot of the challenge, is that there there are so many challenges within our community, due to the fact that we are a small minority still, and there is a need for our society as a whole to be more loving, to be more accepting of us. And the only way that I really know how to combat that is just to be who I am, and show people who think differently than I am that we are just people, and we love who we love, and there is nothing wrong with that.
I think that was pretty good.
We do have a question from the chat on YouTube. Can you give some advice for the future? I think a lot of people right now are scared and nervous about, life. What's making you feel hopeful? What's making you feel excited about our future?
I'll go first. Um, you know, history repeats itself. It's ever revolving. A lot of bad, but a lot of really good things. And I can't remember the name of the book, but before I ran for office, I read a book that talked about the greatest campaign um, in the history of campaigns, and it was the equality campaign, the marriage campaign, and I'm not sure if I'm saying the right words. Um, but the reason why people look at that campaign as one of the greatest is because it was about love. Um, there's so many things that we can be angry about and that we can fight about, but there's nothing greater than love. Um, and when I read that book, my thought was that like they did it like in the right way. They were so organized, and but they stayed focused on what they wanted and what the real issue was. Um, and again, when you looked at that campaign and the effort and the purpose of it, it was it was about love. And I think if like right now is really scary. There's a lot of really crazy things happening. Politics is just wild right now. Um, but what I'm hopeful about is that whenever we see really difficult things and resistance, we go back into history, it's always won by goodness, right? Like it's always won by our intentions and how we operate and the way we fight back. And for me, I always know, I think about that, and I think about as a community, like when we rise, and we rise in like really meaningful ways, it's it's that light that we have, it's that spirit that is innately within us, it's the love that it's mana. It's all these good things. That's how we win. And I know that it's going to get really difficult and it's going to feel really awful, but we will always go back to that. And I truly believe that.
That was a good answer. Well, I think are we at a place we can wrap? It's it's been so nice to have you both here tonight. Like, thank you, and thank you for bringing the great people that you brought with you tonight. I don't know, it's special. It's especially special to me because I mean, kind of like you talked about, I did not see these kinds of conversations happening when I was growing up. I didn't see people who looked like me in spaces like this. So I'm very grateful for everything that you both do and for joining us here at the center tonight. So can we just give the sisters a round of applause? And everyone tuning in, thank you for supporting the Utah Pride Center. We have other guests coming shortly to our space. So join us next time. I think the next fireside chat like this is next week, Wednesday. So we'll see you then. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, everybody.